Hi everyone, and a warm welcome to the channel. I first visited this church back in October, so around 4 or 5 months ago, and this is when I had what I called a ghostly experience. So if you haven't seen that video, please do watch it and you'll get some more context for this video. So I've returned today and I've actually brought my wife, as I did say the last video, I would not visit this church on my own. As I thought, even though it is a very grey, blustery day today, nothing happened. The church felt totally different. It's very bright inside today, which is very strange because the day I came, it was no darker than it was today, but inside was very dark. So I've actually managed to do the tour that I originally wanted to show you the first time I came. So before we go and take a look inside and talk about the history of this church, I just want to talk about that last video very quickly. And with all of your help, your hundreds of comments, I've come to the conclusion that what I experienced that day is most probably a poltergeist. And there's also a very big possibility that it could have been one of the old church wardens. Now, I do have a reason why I say that. I've done lots of homework on this place and poltergeist in general, but that's for another day. Today, I would like to talk about this church. Now, this is St Michael's and All Angels Church, and the exact location will be in the description below. This is a Grade 1 listed church, and it dates from the 13th century. It is said that these bells that you're seeing now are the oldest in the whole of Monmouthshire, and they are original to the first church. They are from the 13th century as well. This is a redundant church, meaning it is no longer open for services, but it is looked after by the Friends of Friendless Churches. Now, this is why it is still open to the public, and I believe it's still consecrated, as there's some quite fresh graves here. Let's go and have a look inside now. The porch has this mesh door on it to stop the birds getting in and nesting in the porch itself. I love this little sign about the pews, and of course it's the pew inside this church that gave me all the problems in the first place. There's an unbroken medieval stoop here, which is nice to see. I was quite surprised to see how bright it was inside the church, as I was expecting it to be very dark like last time. I did try the lights anyway, but they still don't work. There is still parts of this church that date from the 13th and 14th century, but back in the 15th century it was rebuilt and a wagon roof was made. It was restored again in 1853, and they did some work on the double bell cot where the bells are situated, and also some other parts of the church. Their friends took over in 2017. In 2022, they carried out some structural repairs to the chancel, re-roofed the whole church, and also, wherever it was needed, they repointed. I really like to visit the Friends churches because they're almost always open and they're definitely very interesting places. When I do visit, I always bring some cash and I leave some money. They don't often have card machines here, so if you do visit, always just have some cash in your pocket. Also, you can become a member and try and help the Friends. It's about £30 a year. So if that's something that interests you, head over to their website and you can become a member today. So as I said before, it's a lot brighter today, and I can actually see some details on this, what's left of the rood screen. Now, I haven't changed any settings on my phone. It is just literally a lot brighter here. The altar is very simple, and there's no stained glass windows in the church. It would have been quite a simple church just for the farmers, so that might explain why it's not very fancy. There's a lot of ledger stones, which I will look at now on the floor in the altar. Now, I do go too quick in most of my videos. Hopefully you can see that I am slowing down for this one. But as I've just created a new website, I'm going around these churches and taking lots of pictures. So if you go to that website, which is www.thechurchtourist.co.uk, you'll be able to see these pictures and actually read them better than trying to pause this video. This pulpit is not original to the church. It actually comes from All Saints Church in Kemmy's Inferior, which was demolished some years ago to make way for the Usk Valley Road. Now, I don't know any information about that church. It might have been in a really bad state and needed pulling down anyway, but it just amazes me how these people get away with taking churches down in replacement of a road. As I walked down the nave, I walked past my favourite pew that was making all that noise last time, and today it didn't make a single sound, which kind of proves my theory that when you're with someone else, you're very unlikely to have a ghostly experience. Now, when I was last here, I called this a funny little room, and actually, this is from the original Rood screen, and they've made a little separate font room out of that screen, so it's actually quite nice. I couldn't find any information about the font or a date on it, but it's that typical octagonal shape. So if I had to guess, I would say this is from the 15th century when they rebuilt the church. It could also be from the 1850s when they restored the church, because it is in quite a good condition. However, it just doesn't give me that Victorian vibe. If anyone watching knows anything about this font, or indeed anything else about this church, please leave the information in the comments below. There is a book that was found inside the church, and it keeps records that go back to 1758 of all the baptisms and burials that were done inside this church. So I assume that the Friends have this book somewhere. I'd love to have a closer look at that, because it'd be fascinating to see who's actually been buried here, and if it records the amount of people that are actually buried underneath the church. This ledger stone reads, "In memory of William Williams, who died October the 19th, 1805, aged 49 years. Also, Mary, his granddaughter, died July 24th, 1809, aged 5 years and 7 months." This next one is a little bit older and a bit harder to read, and it goes back to the 1780s. Here's a closer look at the magnificent barrel ceiling that was made in the 15th century. It appears to be in a fantastic condition. Such lovely craftsmanship. As I said earlier, please check out my new website and you'll be able to read these memorials a lot easier. This church should be on there in the next couple of days because I haven't quite finished writing it all up yet. As always, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully it's answered a lot of your questions, because I know lots of you want to know where this church was. I just didn't want to encourage people coming here for the wrong reasons beforehand. But as you can see from this tour, it's a really nice church. My only advice is don't come here on your own. As always, I'll leave you now with some aerial footage.